All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Additive Snack Podcast. I'm your host, Fabian Alefeld, and today we are starting with a really awesome two-part series with the folks from America Makes. We will have two people on the show that are today and have been for a long time, they're very influential in the additive manufacturing industry. And that is Kimberly Gibson, and that is also Herrick from America Makes. Now, if you're not familiar with America Makes, Kimberly will give us a history lesson. We'll talk a lot about the organization as well. But of course, we'll also explore some topics that are on top of a lot of people's minds, which is policy, innovation, industrial resilience. How are all of these topics converging to reshape US manufacturing landscape, but also really the global manufacturing landscape as a whole? And then in part two, Ed will join me to look at the human side of transformation, right? So the workforce side, the next generation of talent. How can we use all of these resources to really push additive manufacturing and leverage additive manufacturing to its fullest potential? So therefore, really excited to talk to you, Kimberly. Welcome to Additive Snack.
Thank you, Fabian. Excited to be here with you. And I'm actually sitting in our brand new America Makes office in Columbus, Ohio. And
Awesome.
There's nothing on the walls yet, but that's okay. My whole head fills up the screen. Ed Herrick, myself, and our tech transition director, Ben DeMarco, share this office in Columbus, and we're growing here. We wanted to be closer to the state capital where so much is happening. And we also have a monthly Additive Peeps lunch meetup because there's actually a lot of folks nearby. So we like to kind of hang out whenever we can. So it's really awesome to be with you. And I remember, actually, I was thinking about the story. You were one of the first people I was introduced to my first day at America
Really?
Makes. Yes, we were at remember that event in Cincinnati? It was
Yeah.
a cool parts show. You were there and you had this big booth in the front of this show. It
Yes,
was
I remember
October of
that.
21, right? And John
I
introduced
remember
us.
that.
John Wilczynski, our director, introduced us, and I think I said something. I don't. I said something really. I thought it was funny, but it really didn't come out right. I can't remember. I wish I remembered what it was. And you
Oh, we
did
all
your
do that a lot. Yeah.
Fabian thing. You tilted your head, you raised your eyebrow, and you're like, well, or something like that. It was so funny. I was like, oh man, I don't even know him. And I just like totally made a joke. Thank you for not giving up on me. And 4 years later,
Yeah.
here we are to talk about
Oh
it.
man, I wish I would have remembered that joke.
Anyway, really good to be with you.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. And yeah, also awesome to hear that you're not only shaping partnerships and the industrial ecosystem in the US, but also in Ohio and in Columbus.
That's right.
Hey, before we talk about also the state level and the larger policy level, can you give us a bit of a history lesson on America Makes? I mean, you've been there since 2021 now.
Yep.
The organization has been around for a long time. And while you do that, maybe also touch on how it's transitioned into today's age of additive, right? When it was first founded, additive was a very still new and in certain cases maybe even immature technology that of course has changed a lot. So where did we come from and where are we at today with America Makes?
So I remember my first exposure to additive was when I was at EWI. And this was in 2009. So, and I started learning about polymer printing because EWI is welding and joining, and I was managing their advanced energy manufacturing practice, working with small businesses. And so doing that, it was like, okay, what is this new technology? So had been working with them and our congressman at the time, whose name actually was a senator named Sherrod Brown. And Sherrod Brown was saying, okay, he's really into manufacturing. What kind of things for manufacturing do we need to do to get the U.S. ready? We got to upgrade these businesses. We got to make sure we're ready. So with Battelle and EWI, we worked with Sherrod Brown and the White House at the time, Office of Science and Technology Policy. And the end result of all those discussions were to take a look at manufacturing innovation institutes as a beachhead to stimulate growth in the industrial base in the cities where manufacturing was taking place. And so when you think about America and you look at a map, you can just, intuitively where all the manufacturing is. And so by doing that, the Obama administration at the time and Sherrod Brown as the senator introduced a piece of legislation that would create and kick off all the national network of manufacturing innovation institutes, and now called Manufacturing USA. And America Makes was the first one of those. And so felt really great to be contributing to the concept of that in the earliest days, 2010, 2011. So it's been a long journey for me. I feel like I've been involved since the very beginning, but it's a long road. Here we are in 2025, and that's a long way. That's a long time. It's 15
It's
years.
a long time.
So
Yeah.
I'm a patient woman, Fabian. So I find myself finally able to say that America Makes, when it began, was really focused on building this deep technological expertise in additive. And because we are integrated with the Air Force Research Lab and our contract is run out of there, first you take the hard problems. The Air Force, that's probably one of the hardest things to do, is airworthy additive parts. So you can't start there, as we all know. So focusing on materials and different processes. And so this technical focus has been at the Institute for a long time. You all know that. What came right alongside that was the educational workforce development focus, which I know you'll be hearing from Ed about, and how far that's gone. But the third pillar is the pillar that I am in charge of, and that is the pillar that's the newest one. And it was called ecosystem, and now we're calling it industrial base integration. The importance of that is just what it sounds like. How do we take these technologies, these applications, these materials, and turn them into a supply chain? How do we ensure that they are, injected into the traditional manufacturing supply base? And how do we ensure that that business models that are profitable are possible? And that's been a struggle, right? I mean, all of us, anyone listening will know that additive has been up and down, and we've seen a ton of mergers and acquisitions. And I know we'll talk about that later, but that's a consequence of a lot of different things. One is uncertainty, but I think the industrial base integration pillar, which I manage for America Makes, for me, it's about the business side. It's about making sure profit is possible, and that we are designing these, I'll say, structures and systems that allow the Department of Defense to get what they need, but don't ignore the needs of all industry in all sectors of the economy. And it's great that defense is leading, because they can take risk, and the Institute exists to de-risk some of this technology development, and that's great. But I like to say that I view America Makes as an intervention, because but for technology, integrating new technology is very expensive. It's very time consuming, and if you don't do it well, it's a bet the company proposition. Your company is unprofitable for a couple quarters, you're not going to exist. The shareholders aren't going to go for it. And even if you're a family-owned business, it's really difficult. The margins are thin. So if the government is not helping de-risk, nothing would ever change. Nothing would move. It would be very difficult to justify that. So I'm excited to be doing this work. And I think it's never been more important than it is right now, as our entire world is transitioning. When you think from analog to digital, I mean, we're in the digital age, but we're entering the age of, I say, maybe it's not even artificial intelligence, but maybe it is. So I think integrating all this stuff is the challenge of our generation.
No, I couldn't agree more. We're at a very interesting time in the history of manufacturing and even of humanity, if you wanna
Yes.
go that far.
No, you must go that far, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I think
I think so
physics
too.
is
I think
changing.
so too.
It's silly to say the laws of physics are changing, but they are. The more we learn, the more we're like, oh, that stuff Einstein said, yeah, that was mostly true, but here's this other thing. And I feel
Yeah.
like even in our own circle, right, Fabian, we're learning more about materials and super alloys, and we're learning new things. As we learn new things, the rules change.
Yeah. And it's an interesting aspect, also from your seat, right? So you're the director of industrial base and integration, which really also means you try to take a look at how can we help existing manufacturers to the existing industrial base to adopt technologies like additive. And at the same time, to your point, we have a rapidly changing technology. It's maturing rapidly.
Yes.
So very quickly, right, the state of information that you know about additive is actually outdated.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how should manufacturers look at, or the industrial base today, look at additive, and what role does America Makes play to help them in that adoption transition?
So I guess I would say everyone in the industrial base should be looking at digital manufacturing technologies, whatever that means. You also need to be minding your own cybersecurity. In fact, you can't even really do business with the Department of Defense if you don't do that. Get yourself knowledgeable about those vulnerabilities. It's a new threat. You need to mind that. So really anyone needs to be looking at digital technologies and what that means, how to design for them, how to manage the data that's thrown off of the equipment, and then finally, reverse engineering for digital. So it's a thing. Like, you just need to be involved, and additive is a piece of that. It's not the only thing. But additive, I like to say, is the gateway drug to the future of making. And it truly is. I mean, US technology, like laser powder bed, hey, that's really hard stuff. That's hard. I'm a person that knows much more about the polymer side. I was a founder of a polymer company. And so I cut my teeth on that, learning how to run a small business on the polymer side. And it was hard enough. Most of the time we were educating the consumer about, what the technology could do. And then I'll say, after, the COVID pandemic, people knew what additive could do and how additive could intervene quickly in supply chains. And so that was actually, on some level, as bad as that whole thing was, there were some things that came out of it that were very positive. And I think additive as a technology was pushed to the forefront. And we got to see how it could bridge manufacturing in a really quick time frame. And then the mindset of one layer at a time became much more known. So when I think about the small businesses, I think every machine shop should have at least a polymer machine. Every classroom should have it, because it's a mindset. It's a new way of thinking, and it's not going to go anywhere. In fact, we're only going to build on it. The only way I can even imagine, if we're as a species, you said everything's changing, and I couldn't agree more. If we're going to become an interstellar species, we're going to have to make things in space.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do it the way we do it here on Earth. You're going to have to bring the make sure the equipment is in place, and then figure out what to do with your materials. And
For sure.
so we've
Yeah.
already seen NASA doing, different experiments with that, but whether it's printing regolith to build structures, or it's using the packaging from your MREs at the space station, there's additive is here to stay, and it's in some cases the best and only option. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm excited about. Having said that, I'm going to say most people who buy a thing, Fabian, they don't care how things are made. Most of the time, they don't care. I want it to work. I want it to be aesthetically pleasing.
And I want it to last.
Yeah. I don't really care how it's made. And I'm doing this as I'm looking at a Benchy. Of course, I'm an additive nerd, so I have a Benchy on my.
Good.
I will
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
It's my. Who gave me this? Oh, I think now. Hey, I got a Benchy. Benchy.
You wouldn't be an additive person if you didn't have a Benchy.
Super. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, that's what I think. So additive literacy is an essential skill right now.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about the education aspect with Ed, because I think it's a really important aspect here, right? That will build the workforce that can help, especially small and medium-sized manufacturers, to implement additive on an educated note. And then there's, of course, also other forces that will accelerate the adoption, right? I mean, you talked about the Obama administration first starting to put a point of view on bringing manufacturing back, and that really was a continuous thread throughout all following administrations, all the way until today's administration, right?
Absolutely.
And therefore, what's your point of view on the role that the government, that the defense sector, that also standard market forces today play to accelerate the adoption of additive? And what role should these players play?
Sure. There's so many ways to address that situation. Well, to follow off what I was saying, when I used the term additive literacy, I didn't just mean education and training, but also at the C-suite.
Mm-hmm.
People making the decisions in companies of all sizes, or in organizations of all sizes. Those people are likely in their mid-50s or older, and did not grow up with this technology being at the forefront of their minds. So I think one of the things that I know different companies struggle with is to educate into that C-suite. Because so often you get a young engineer who's right out of school, who is trying to sell this technology in like 3 layers above him or her in the organization. That's really hard. That's really difficult. So the first thing I'm going to say about your answer is understanding the value proposition for using additive is the first thing any engineer needs to do. Cost, lead time, or if you're going to do a full rewrite of 1,000 parts down to 100 parts, the subassembly idea, what can you do? How do you make that case inside your organization and sell up, even past your boss's boss, into the C-suite? How do you help do that? And that's what young engineers are faced with right now when they're coming out of school. So while I feel like that's gotten a little bit better because the crop of folks who are graduating now are well known, they know, I think the C-suite selling in is still a challenge. So at America Makes, we do have a tool. It's called the could versus should. And it's the idea, yeah, we could make it with additive, but should we make it with additive? So
Good question to ask.
yeah, it's the perfect question to ask, I think. And so I would just say that is a tool that we have available to our members to take a look at. But to get back to your other question is I think you asked me what role the government in America Makes has. Was that the question?
Yeah, what role does the government and America Makes as a vehicle of the U.S. government have to accelerate the adoption of additive?
Yeah. So the first role is de-risking the investment.
Okay.
That I think America Makes has provided that role very well. De-risking the technology, creating some, certainty around how the alloy will perform or how the process will perform. Um, Doing that early stage research before competitiveness comes into the play, so that something we can all, no one organization would ever do alone. That's what the government and this consortia, this public-private partnership is really about, is learning from each other in spaces before we compete. So that's huge. I think the second phase is aggregating a demand signal. So once we know the tech works, once we have applications for it, once we maybe even know which suite of materials we want to use, those materials have to be qualified and certified. So there's a whole regime around standards and certifications, which America Makes has been working on with our standards development organization partners, and many of those listening have been involved in those conversations, perhaps ad nauseum, on all the conferences. So just know that I feel like we have been working on that, and I feel like we've cracked the code now, and we are in this phase of really making some hard choices about how that standards and qualification regime will operate. And there's programs. I'm not gonna talk about those because those are not my wheelhouse, but they're important. They're being done, and America Makes has put millions of dollars with the Department of Defense into this, and it's churning. It's churning out results. So stay tuned. The third thing is aggregating demand. So as you've heard, all of us have been suffering mightily because the Department of Defense has had what I'm going to politely say, has been an incoherent demand for our services as a community of practice. The Army has a set, the Air Force does what they do. They're different. The Marines do whatever they want to do. And now the Navy has come in and has really made progress on the maritime industrial base, and are putting structures in place, and are putting echelons in place, and are defining their needs, and defining, who can serve those needs. What are the requirements? What do you have to do as an industry, as a company, to serve us? So I believe the Navy's done a lot to make that coherent, but even still, it's not yet there.
Yeah.
And that's just it's just a challenge. And getting to those bodies that do this, that allow the part to go on a platform, getting them educated, getting them comfortable with a yes instead of a no. That's the bread and butter of what America Makes can be doing to support industry. And I believe that we are. I wish it were faster, but it isn't. But on the point of aggregating demand, I think one of the revelations I've had from my perspective is that we can't even just look at the industry. We can't even look at additive as one part, one machine, because there's so much that happens before the additive part, in the design phase, there's so much that happens after the additive part in the post-processing phase, that I felt for a while now that we need to think about it as like an entire value chain. And so in my work, what I'm trying to do is link these things together in both the material, the process, and the product. And when you're able to do that, you can start to see the overlap. And you'd ask me, what can companies do? You need to understand those material product combinations so that you know, if I'm serving the Navy, I can also serve the energy industry. Why? Because the materials are the same, the process is the same, but the part is going to be different. So, like, do you need to start making inroads in oil and gas sector or, energy equipment? So the answer is yes, you do. And at America Makes, we've started making those inroads. We've started communicating with oil and gas and energy and seeing that overlap. And we're working at a supply chain level and a material product combination level to understand those part families and how they're similar. And so, yeah, it's not going to be the same company you're working with. It's not going to be the same product. Even the standards regime will be different. Okay. Doing it for the Department of Defense, doing it for, uh, you know, the energy
And oil and
industry,
gas.
oil and gas,
Yeah.
it's going to be different.
Mhm.
I will not comment on who is easier. I'll just say it's different. So I think for you as an additive company, you need to start looking at those material product combinations and where you can play across all sectors of the economy. And I would, if I were you, I wouldn't have any more than 20 to 30% of my product in defense. The reason is we just came off of a 1 month shutdown of
Mhm.
our entire government in the United
Yeah.
States. Untold billions of dollars were redirected or lost opportunities as a result of that. If I'm a small business, I maybe have a couple of months of backlog to absorb that level of um, uncertainty. And then the tariffs.
Yeah.
Let's not even talk about that. Some folks are now suing for tariff protection because they paid the tariffs and now they want their money back because whatever. So I'm just saying you shouldn't have all of your eggs in the defense basket, because the Department of Defense, while it's a wonderful customer, is also doesn't need everything all the time.
Mm.
It's going to give you a really big order and then it's going to back off for a while. So you need to have other people fill in that void. And so I would say at the America Makes, what we're doing is we're looking at it at the value chain level. Heat exchangers, energy subsystems, medical. What are the things that are overlapping with your process and your materials so that we can start to level that demand signal out for you? That's what we're working on now. That's my primary focus at the moment.
That is very interesting. So you're really encouraging folks to not be a pure defense contractor, but to build a second leg or multiple legs in commercial industries
Yes.
that can be your more predictable demand signal, and then your defense is the extra the extra capacity that if it comes in is a profitable and rewarding business, but cannot be a reliable long-term business customer.
I think that while I'm saying this, and it's because we were founded and funded by the Department of Defense, I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to in any way shoot myself in the foot or shoot our Department of Defense in the foot. But at the same time, until the Department of Defense is able to give us a coherent demand, we have to make sure our additive companies can continue to exist and not be acquired by foreign private equity. As
Mhm.
an example of taking, the technology and the IP and putting it somewhere else. So it's a challenge. I'm saying you've got to be really thinking about how to diversify the sectors that you're serving. And to the extent that America Makes can be helpful to you, call us. We want to support you in that. So that's what I'm focused on right now. I think there are ways and there are other structures that we're working on to aggregate that demand, because I do believe the Department of Defense, they do want this. And in fact, I think there's some things in the works at the congressional level that could be very important in the near term, the next 2 years for companies making parts. So
Okay.
Congress is putting a signal out there, and we'll see if the Department of Defense picks it up.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So, I mean, Congress and previous administrations have continuously signaled interest to also support reshoring, to support the build out of advanced manufacturing. What recent policy changes have already been implemented that support that angle, and what should we expect additionally to happen in the near future?
A great question. So in July of this year, Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin introduced us, I think it was Senate Bill 2214. And in that bill, she and her staff had extensive conversations with a lot of folks in the additive industry and other industries. She spoke extensively to America Makes, the AM Coalition, lots of different companies, okay, of all sizes. She wanted to understand if we were going to take this advanced manufacturing technology to the next level, what would we need to do? And one of the recommendations that came out of that is the notion of 1 million additively made parts being certified and qualified that the Department of Defense would put on platforms. And that language is in the current National Defense Authorization Act that's in Congress right now that should be voted on any day now.
Interesting.
But for the month shutdown, we might have already had that legislation in place. So what does that mean? Well, the legislation just says the Department of Defense shall do this. It does not say how it will happen. So it will be up to, I think America Makes will take this on with industry, and we will help fill in the gaps of how that will occur, along with the Department of Defense, supporting the Department of Defense to figure that out. And as I mentioned earlier, we're working on the qualification certification. America Makes is working with our other partners and satellite centers to create the concept of a registry for additive companies. And you might just look at that as a company that's qualified to do different things. And if you think about it as a matrix, wherever you are in the additive spectrum, whatever part of additive you're doing in the value chain, we want to make sure we know who you are, where you are, and what your capability is. So whenever there's an opportunity, we can make sure you're ready for it. So that's one aspect of aggregating demand, because really last year, the Defense Logistics Agency had two RFPs that were for additive. First time ever. This was a long time they have spent trying to get this out. They had 2 RFQs on the street and nobody bid on them. Wow. Now you can say, well, they weren't well positioned, or the language wasn't right, or, my data scraping didn't pick it up, or whatever. Nobody bid. So they called us at America Makes, Kimberly, Ben, DeMarco. Nobody bid. Who do we call? Who can do this? So we went through our member list and we went through all the folks, and we're like, well, here's about 25 folks who can do this for you. You can call them. So
Unbelievable.
It shouldn't be that manual. It should not.
Yeah.
And
so we still haven't found a way to activate the additive industrial
No,
base
no,
today.
not at scale, not at all. So that was a pilot, and we learned a lot from it. The DLA is taking action now to, make changes that will change that problem. And we're working together closely and have been. So we're making progress. I'll just leave it at that. But that was one piece. I think you were asking also about the congressional language. Well, there were 3 provisions in that bill. I'm trying to remember the second one. I got to look at my notes. Forgive me a second. Oh, there's another piece. I don't want to get into this too much, but it's there. It's a thing. There's 3 things. One is the million parts. The second one is right to repair. And that is when you think about sustainment at the DoD level, all those platforms are the technical data is owned by the OEM. And in many cases, the OEM doesn't wish to support that platform anymore, but they deserve to be paid for their intellectual property. And so the right to repair language is in the bill. There's a different version in the House and Senate. It's trying to address that issue, especially for sustainment. I think it's a bit easier for new build, but the problem really now is sustainment. So there's some language in there that will address that will help unleash those million parts. And I won't discuss it in detail here. That's not what we're here to do, but just know it's in there and know the Congress is stating their intent, not only for those million parts to be additively made, qualified, certified, but also dealing with this right to repair issue on the sustainment side.
And is that on the U.S. government as a user of parts, or also a legislation piece for the commercial industry when it comes to right to repair?
I believe that the focus is really for the U.S. government to be able to pay for and allow those parts to be made, whether that's through reverse engineering or, giving
Receiving
the data
files.
all the things people are aware of, but it's a big deal. I mean, congressional intent is clear in this legislation. Congress is saying, the Department of Defense, we want you to do this. We want you to advance this now. We're putting the policy in place so that you can. Let's go. So that's as much of a demand signal as the Congress can really give. And now it's up to the administration, Department of Defense, and the private sector to help interpret that intent and to move it forward.
Very interesting.
So this is unprecedented, Fabian. I mean, we are on the edge of a deluge of additive demand. And it's up to us to interpret it. This is so exciting. I mean, I'm so excited. It's taken so long to get here. And I just want to give a shout out to our friends at the Additive Manufacturing Coalition for helping, put this forward. All the folks, yourself, your own company included, who come to Congress, who have talked to them, who've shared their knowledge. And of course, America Makes and all the work we've done with our standards development organizations trying to make this happen. I mean, it has truly been the entire community has come together to get us to this point. There's not a single actor who got us here. So it's exciting. And I know that if we're having this conversation in a couple more months, we'll be in the thick of interpreting what this means. And I think maybe we should touch base again in a few months to see what's happening.
I think we should. And to your earlier point, right, especially the topic of sustainment should also lead to a more predictable demand signal, right? Because you're not just talking about one new program that now has an additive application implemented, but you're talking about continuous sustainment. You'd also talk a bit more about material predictability. Which would really help to make, therefore, the U.S. government a bit of a better and more predictable customer
Yes.
for those organizations that want to put one of their chips into the defense or public sector.
That's it. If we're going to reindustrialize America with digital technologies, we must have this coherent demand signal. It must happen. And I believe that it is. And I believe that we're on the edge of it.
Let's hope so. When it comes to specific sectors, now you mentioned the US Navy that recently made, I think as a lot of people know, a big push into additive.
Yeah.
Before that, also the Air Force was a leading thought leader in what it means to leverage additive applications. What sectors do you see today also pulling additive? I mean, the drone sector, in my opinion, comes to mind. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what additive means for that sector, but also any other sub industries that you think are very interesting, where you see a lot of acceleration today.
Certainly unmanned, I'll say unmanned vehicles in general.
Sure. Airs, subsea, etc. Yeah.
Yes, whether it's USVs or drones or what have you. Huge push there for wartime reasons, the Ukraine and Russia war, but have proved out that technology and the application. I think we're just starting to understand what's possible with unmanned vehicles. I would also say what I'm seeing in the in additive is I'm seeing sort of two camps. I'm seeing the unmanned versus the manned camp of technology platforms. So unmanned, very few if no regulations, because it's not, humans aren't running it.
Sure.
It's super experimental, can move super fast. The consequences of failure are less. Also, you're seeing a ton of investment from the private sector going into those sectors. So they have their own money. And because they don't have to worry about qualification, certification, any of that stuff, they still have to worry about training, but they don't have to worry about qualification or certification. They can fail fast. They can experiment a lot. They have their own money. They're going crazy. You're seeing that when I say unmanned, I don't just mean drones, but I'm also thinking about space, the space sector. You think about companies like, SpaceX and, other folks who are building things that are satellites, those kinds of uses, launching. That's huge. I think you're going to see a lot of work in the, what's the word I'm going to use? I can't say this word. Really fast, Mach 15.
Hypersonics type application.
Hypersonic propulsion. And that also is unmanned. So you're going to see a ton of investment there. And additive is the best way to get that started and get that underway. And in fact, we've done a great deal of work in hypersonic propulsion using additive. So I think you'll see a lot there. But again, totally different sector. People aren't involved in writing on those things. So the hardest,
hopefully not.
Right? Yeah. No, hopefully not. I don't think we're not all Tom Cruise and Top Gun.
No.
Going Mach 15 and not losing our mind.
Exactly.
Or our lunch. So the other side. I did love the footage from that. It was wow. What a great film. So the second piece is the manned side. So you're right. The Air Force has done an amazing amount of work to get us to the point we're at. And they're continuing to adapt their strategy. They are struggling to implement the sustainment side in the organic industrial base. That's difficult for them. But the defense industrial base, they know, I mean, we have the best engineers in the world. The defense industrial base, you give them a problem, they can solve it. We know that. Any of
Yeah.
our companies can solve, especially our big, large companies. They can bring all the resources to bear to solve that problem. So I feel like the two worlds in additive, American Makes tends to work more with the folks that have all the regulations and qualifications for obvious reasons. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who we're working with mostly, and trying to create the systems and the architecture for making decisions and accelerating that. So that's where we are with that. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. No, I think it does confirm the key sector, at least on the government side, that really are pulling additive for obvious reasons. And also in our earlier conversation, the whole sustainment topic, I think in the defense sector is gonna hopefully accelerate, but also in the private sector, right? And that to me is always
Yes.
a really positive signal for the maturity of additive, that we're starting to print parts that are actually not designed for additive, that are designed for different conventional manufacturing technologies. And
Yes.
therefore, I think we're reducing the barrier of adoption significantly.
Yes. Yes. I know I forgot to answer that. I said energy earlier, the energy sector. But
Sure.
when you
Yeah.
think about the energy sector, what are the things that went offshore the last 30 years? Large industrial parts. So transformers, large pressure vessels, kinds of things. The weight for a transformer, when you think about the infrastructure that transmits our
Mhm.
energy, it's 12 to 24 months for one of those things. I saw one driving on the road the other day. I'm like, whoa. It was the Japanese, because Japanese and the South Koreans are where you get those if you're not going to buy it from China. So
Mhm.
that's the three places that you can get those things. So our energy sector, we're seeing a huge need because of data centers and AI. We're seeing a huge need for energy. Also, as manufacturing ramps back up and we reindustrialize, you need more energy infrastructure. And our grid is really old. So you don't just need small things, you're going to need big things. And I'll say the nuclear industry is looking to capitalize on the last 30 years of invention in small modular nuclear reactors that
Yeah.
they maintain are super safe. They're a lot smaller. And I think they get buried partially. So they're a lot safer. The effluent that comes off of them is a lot less. So will additive play a role in deploying those new technologies? I think it's a resounding yes. The materials are identical to what we're
Yeah.
using in maritime. So why wouldn't additive have a role in that energy renaissance, whether it's small or large? And so we're working with EPRI, EPRI. EPRI is the name of the group.
Mhm.
On sort of the research side and trying to make sense of the supply chains and see where they overlap. And I
That's
feel
interesting.
very
Yeah.
strongly we'll be able to share with you next year some significant progress on the overlap between, I'll say, defense and energy for additive. So stay tuned,
Yeah. And
everybody.
that's awesome. And there's already today additive contract manufacturers that serve exactly those two verticals, right?
Yes. Yes.
And there is some a lot of interesting overlap there to your earlier
Yes.
point, to put your eggs in a few baskets
Yes.
besides just the defense basket. And energy has been one of those hidden champions of additive,
Yes.
from Siemens Energy to solar turbines to also the oil and gas industry with Exxon and Chris, right? That are really pushing the adoption of additive.
It's growing, and it's growing.
Yeah.
And I know this is the Additive Snack Podcast, and we're not really talking about AM construction here. We're talking about
Oh, we
more
can.
parts,
We
but
can.
um,
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more interest in additive construction from the construction industry, civil,
Interesting.
civil. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, that industry has to go through the whole same challenges we've had in traditional manufacturing about how to permit it and education and training, all the things, but it's ramping up. It's needed for affordability, it's needed for quickness, it's needed for the ability to do in situ construction using the materials that are available. So that's a whole nother industry that I think we're going to see a lot more of that is growing. Um,
Yeah. And probably it's an industry that is at a point where metal and polymer additive were at 10 years ago.
yes, that's
Um,
right.
right. I mean, I'm in Austin. Icon 3D is headquartered here. Um, their first demo house is actually on sale right now. I'd love to tour it. Uh, I love the additive houses. I mean, the design to I
Yeah.
think a point you made very early on, maybe even before we clicked record, of the intersection between engineering and design and the artistic aspect of additive can definitely be seen in those types of applications.
It's a new aesthetic entirely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
I totally live in one.
yes, I would. I like the lines. I like layer
Yeah,
lines. Bring it on.
exactly, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's a feature.
it is. I think the aesthetic issue has been a challenge for additive. And I think on the polymer side, we're seeing the ability to recycle materials um, using additive, especially on the polymer side, is opening new markets. And because if you can do it at the pellet level, you can build big things quickly and reduce cost and lead time and create a large variation. And you can reuse materials locally. So I think we'll also see a renaissance in that industry, that side of additive becoming more used, whether it's at the civil engineering level, municipal level, or to make things like furniture or sound barrier walls or concrete forms or what have you.
Hmm, interesting. I could see Sunbear walls being interesting, right? Because you can actually create some structures that could absorb and reflect sound a bit better. Um, Now, for users out there that want to get more engaged with American makes and also benefit from some of the funding mechanisms, are there any current open calls that people should be aware of?
On our website, we do have a new teaming function. So let's say
Mhm.
you are interested in teaming up with somebody, but you don't really know who. So if you go into the teaming link, and I can send that to you, Fabian, to include. You go into the
Yeah.
teaming link, you put all your information in there, say what kind of things you want to team up on. Um, America Makes will team you up with people and say, hey, you might call these people because they have a similar interest. So we're pretty proud of that because we think so often the smalls need to team up with others in order
Hmm.
to, complete the cycle, whether that's an SBIR you want to do, or maybe even compete for an America Makes project or an open project call. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that you guys had that feature.
it's new.
Um, that's cool. Awesome. Yeah, matchmaking, partnerships, definitely key in additive. Okay, last question, Kimberly. If you could send a message or want to give some advice to policymakers, but also to the industrial base, what's your message?
I feel like I need a tattoo on my knuckles that says hold fast. I
On
promise
both
it's
ends, yeah.
coming. I I know you need orders, you need POs, you need to exist and survive. But don't stay the course because things are changing rapidly, not just in America but around the world. And this technology is maturing. It is still needs you. It needs your tender, loving care to put it into the mainstream so that all of us can profit from it and, generate the next industrial revolution. And then I fully expect to be on this podcast again, talking about how we're using AI to make it all better and how congressional intent can be served with additive manufacturing in various other sectors as well, whether that's medical devices or what have you. But this industry is not going away. And in fact, we're growing and maturing. Hang in there. Let's continue to collaborate. Let's continue to make history. And I
There you go.
think I do feel that um, stormy seas we can hold fast, and the Department of Defense is bringing that coherent signal. But don't rely on it.
Okay. That is a good it's a good message, Kimberly. Yeah, hold fast, but also diversify.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the diversification piece we can all agree with, and I think is a good strategy in general. Unless you have that long-term super solid demand signal. Um, Kimberly, it was awesome to have you on the show. You're always welcome to come back and talk about AI, talk about hopefully new policies that make it through Congress, and we'll discuss what that then means for manufacturers out there and how they can prepare. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks for all the work you do at America Makes, bringing the industrial base together to serve the government, but also the general manufacturing renaissance. And thanks for being on the podcast and sharing all your insights with us. It was awesome to have you.
Thank you, Fabian. I really enjoyed this, and let's see what happens. Yeah,
Let's see what happens.
exciting
Let's see
time
what
to be
happens.
alive.
Yeah, and to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check out the second episode of this season with America Makes, where we talk to Ed about workforce development and how we can get ourselves, our children, and even generations before us into the additive manufacturing industry. This was the Additive Snack Podcast. Share with a friend, a colleague, or anybody who wants to learn about US policy and manufacturing and additive and how to strengthen the industrial base. I'm Fabian Alefeld, and I will see you next time.